speak now to the Brexit Secretary, Stephen Barclay, who very sensibly joins us from our studios just up the road. Mr Barclay, very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
I just wonder your reflections on a fairly tumultuous day in politics, which saw a third of your colleagues on the Conservative benches saying, do you know what, Theresa May, it's time for you to go.
Well, the Prime Minister actually secured one more vote than she did when she became leader of the party. But what's also clear is she is listening to colleagues. She recognises the concerns that colleagues have on this specific issue of the backstop. We don't want to get into the backstop. The European Union don't want to either. It's difficult for them if we do go into the backstop. But there are concerns in Parliament on that issue, and that is why she's back out in Brussels today, making the case and seeking the legal and political assurances that people like Ian Duncan-Smith say they need to have, and that is exactly the issue she's working on today.
So specifically, what form will those legal reassurances take?
Well, there's discussions to be had. Obviously, there is the legal force of the withdrawal agreement, and colleagues have said that they want to have confidence that we're not going to get stuck in the backstop. And the European Union do not want to get stuck in the backstop. It's difficult for them as well. So those discussions are ongoing. The direction of travel is positive, and we need to have those discussions in a way that gives confidence to our own colleagues in the Conservative Party, to colleagues in the DUP, and also to MPs across Parliament, because this is the only deal that is going to give certainty to the jobs of your viewers, for our security, that's going to give the protections to EU citizens and also our citizens in Europe. So this is the deal that gives certainty, as opposed to the alternatives, which will be bringing uncertainty. But we need to address this specific issue. The Prime Minister's listened, she's heard those concerns, and she's back out in Brussels today making that case.
But the problem for many of your colleagues who want those legal assurances is, as Andrew Bridgen told me a little bit earlier on today, they won't be, whatever form they're in the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement has legal primacy, so to speak. It sits atop the rest of it. Therefore, any of these reassurances that are given would not be, in the legal sense, legally binding.
Well, Andrew's comments don't reflect those of all of the members of the ERG. In fact, many members of the ERG have come out since the vote and have said that the issue of the leadership is settled. They recognise the result, and then it's now a time for the party to come together in the national interest and to get a deal that delivers on the referendum. We had a referendum vote, which was the biggest vote in our country's history. We're weeks away from leaving on the 29th of March. The Prime Minister has secured a deal that delivers on that referendum result, but does so in a way that gives the certainty to businesses, to jobs, for our security that we need. There is a specific issue. She's listened to colleagues also in the DUP, on the specific issue of the backstop. We don't intend to get into the backstop. We've got options and safeguards to avoid it. But notwithstanding that, colleagues do have concerns. The Prime Minister recognises that. That's why she's back out in Brussels today, making that case and seeking the legal and political assurances that colleagues need.
But what is the chance, though, Mr Barclay, of, as you say, the party coming together when so many of your colleagues literally voted to see Theresa May deposed?
Well, they need to look at the alternatives, and the alternatives are either not delivering on Brexit, which I think would be a betrayal to the biggest vote in our history, or the risk of no deal, which would be damaging to jobs. So this is the only deal. The European Union have made it clear. It's a deal that's taken over 2 years of intense negotiation, with the Prime Minister fighting day and night on behalf of the country. The EU want this deal. We want this deal, but there is a specific issue around the backstop on which colleagues have raised concerns. So the Prime Minister's listened to that. She's making the case. But the alternatives that sometimes people float, what is often referred to as the Norway option or Norway Plus or Canada, other deals also would require a backstop, because we're committed to ensuring we don't have a hard border in Northern Ireland. We need to respect the Good Friday Agreement. That's why the backstop is there. But neither side, the UK nor Europe, want to have the backstop. And so the discussions are to ensure that we can clarify the position on that in a way that gives sufficient confidence to our own colleagues.
If there aren't sufficient changes to the backstop, we know where the next challenge is going to come. It was outlined by Liam Fox yesterday. I think it's very difficult to support the deal if we don't get changes to the backstop. I don't think it will get through. I'm not even sure the Cabinet will agree for it to be put to the Commons. I mean, that's a fair assessment of where we are today, isn't it?
Well, we saw last night in media reports the direction of travel, which is positive, but this is why the Prime Minister is out there making this case, because we do recognise there are concerns in Parliament on this specific issue. The deal as a whole delivers on many other things that Brexiteers like me campaigned for, things like a skills-based immigration system, giving rights, protecting the rights of both EU citizens and UK citizens in Europe, having the close security relationship that we need to protect our streets. So there's a huge amount in the deal that we need to maintain and support, but there is a specific point on the backstop. The Prime Minister's listened to colleagues on that point. She's out in Brussels making that case, and I think there's a shared desire within the European Union as well to ensure that we do get a deal that works for both sides.
I'm just interested in what your role in all of this is, Mr. Barclay. I'm very, very pleased that you've taken the time to talk to me, but on such a pivotal day in the process, as you mentioned, Theresa May's back out in Brussels today. Shouldn't you be there?
Well, it was always going to be the case that the Prime Minister, in sort of the final stage of this deal, that these were discussions taken at heads of government. That was always the case. I actually spoke to the Prime Minister on the phone last night following the vote in the House of Commons, and we discussed these issues. But it was always going to be the case that these final parts of the deal were done at heads of government level. My focus will be on the phase two, leading that at a political level as we then go into the future economic partnership, deliver for the trade agreements that we need. But the final days of what is known as phase one, this part was always going to be done at heads of government level.
But hasn't this always been part of Theresa May's problem? That on big occasions like this, she gives the impression that she's collegiate, that she consults widely. But actually, when push comes to shove, it's Theresa May, Otley Robbins out there doing the business, not yourself, not the Foreign Secretary, not any of the other members of Cabinet.
Well, I mean, we've just covered that, and I think that was always going to be the case, that heads of government do these final stages of the negotiations, and that's always been the case under successive Prime Ministers. But the key issue here is we have a deal on the table from the Prime Minister. The EU are clear, after 2 years of intense negotiation, that this is the only deal. The alternatives to this deal are going to be uncertainty that is bad for the jobs of your viewers, bad for our security, bad for protecting the rights of our citizens in Europe. This is the right deal, it's the only deal. There is a specific concern. The Prime Minister's listened to colleagues on that point and is out making the case so that we get this deal over the line.
Given that in excess of 100 of your colleagues voted yesterday that they didn't believe that Theresa May was the right person to lead the party, why are you confident, why are you in any way confident that a chunk of that number wouldn't vote with the opposition benches if a no-confidence motion was tabled in the Commons?
Well, I mean, I don't presume as to how colleagues will vote. That's a decision for each colleague to make. But when doing so, one will need to look at what the alternatives are. And I think many of those colleagues who may have had concerns last night are also firmly committed, as I am, as someone who supported the Leave campaign, to ensure that we deliver on the referendum result. And there is a risk, given the position of many others in Parliament, that people will seek to frustrate Brexit, to frustrate what was the biggest vote in our history. The Prime Minister is committed to delivering on the referendum result, to delivering things such as a skills-based immigration system, putting an end to sending vast sums of money to the EU, many other things that I campaigned on and parliamentary colleagues campaigned on. There is a particular point that has come out from colleagues in terms of the backstop. Prime Minister is seeking to address that with EU colleagues, but the deal is the only deal on the table, and the alternative is either that we don't deliver on that big democratic vote in the referendum, or we risk having no deal, which would be damaging to jobs. We will manage it as effectively as we can, but no deal would also cause disruption, particularly in the short term.
But just in conclusion, Mr. Barclay, if you don't get the movement on the backstop, you are in essence conceding it's game over.
We are committed to securing that deal. That's why the Prime Minister is out there fighting for the country, acting in the national interest. And I think most MPs recognise that this has been a divisive period over the last 2 years, and it's now time to come together as a country to get this deal over the line, to address the specific concern that there is on the backstop, but to recognise that this is the only deal that will recognise the referendum and deliver on the referendum result. And some of the other deals being floated, such as Norway, would also require a backstop. So this is the right deal, it's the only deal, and it's the deal that will give certainty to businesses, to jobs, to your viewers in terms of their livelihoods.
Stephen Barclay, many thanks for joining us.